Wisconsin County that claims transitioning children is a fundamental right in the process of declaring sanctuary status so children can be...
Okay, let me just make a point here. This is important. Children are not medically transitioning when they're trans. Trans children are not medically transitioning. This is not happening. Kids sometimes find out that they are trans at 13 years old, 14, 15. I mean, it's happened. Hell, I guess it's happened as young as 8, probably. But there is no doctor on planet Earth that would medically transition a kid. Now, when people say, like Flashpoint, when people like Flashpoint say children are transitioning, what they actually mean is minors, people under 18. Apparently, statistics on this are pretty difficult to find because they're not really tracked. But the New York Times did their own independent study, and here's what they came up with. This is from the New York Times, quote, "There are no official statistics on how many minors receive top surgeries each year in the U.S. The New York Times surveyed leading pediatric gender clinics across the country. 11 clinics said they carried out a total of 203 procedures on minors in 2021, and many reported long wait lists. Another 9 clinics declined to respond, and 6 said they referred patients to surgeons in private practice." End quote. That's top surgeries, not bottom surgeries. You are not legally allowed anywhere, and haven't been this entire time for decades and decades, to have bottom surgery if you're under 18. Top surgery is reserved for people between 15 and 18. At the absolute earliest, there was somebody that was 14 years old who had top surgery. On the other hand, a total of 30,246 nose jobs were performed on patients aged 13 to 19 in 2015. Hard to find statistics on this type of stuff, but that's the one we've got. 30,246 as opposed to 203 top surgeries on people that are 15 to 18. 1 on somebody that was 14. 0 bottom surgeries. This problem is overblown and taken completely out of context. To my knowledge, 0 bottom surgeries on any minors, 18 or younger, in the entire history of the United States ever. This problem is non-existent. And this does not happen for children. It happens for minors, technically, I suppose, but not children. And that's a fact that these people are desperate to hide from you. Desperate to convince you is not true.
Process of declaring sanctuary status so children can be medically transitioned without parental consent. Dane County, which includes Wisconsin state capital Madison, is set to vote on the resolution declaring sanctuary for trans and non-binary individuals. The County Board of Supervisors claimed it was illegal violence. This is what just is amazing to me. Rick, I'm going to come to you first out of there.
Right. So the problem here is that the right keeps chipping away little by little, chipping away at people's rights. Just little things here and there, right? Like making it illegal for kids under, say, 12 years old to medically transition. Hey, I agree with that. They shouldn't be getting physical alteration. They shouldn't be getting surgeries under 12 years old. Agreed. But chipping away at people's rights little by little was the whole point. I mean, just look at what Ron DeSantis did in Florida. He says, we shouldn't be teaching children in kindergarten about sex ed. Well, no one was doing that. So he bans it, right? Writes this whole bill banning people from teaching kindergartners sex ed. Okay, that's something I can agree with, I suppose. I mean, I think like the Don't Say Gay bill is more complex than just not teaching them sex ed. I don't remember exactly what was in it. Except then he expanded it to 12th grade. That's what they do. They get a wedge in by passing bills everybody can agree with. 12-year-olds should not receive, they shouldn't get anything cut off, right? And then they expand it up to people older than that, 18, 21, 26. Hell, let's ban it entirely. We already have the template built out here for 12-year-olds. You're not allowed to, 12-year-olds are not allowed to medically transition. Let's just expand that out to everybody. That's the problem. When they chip away like this, it leads to full-blown persecution every time. They are building out premises upon which they can persecute people. So I'm not in favor of 8 to 12-year-olds getting bottom surgery. Obviously, nobody is. That wasn't happening before. But I'm also opposed to legislation that prevents people from getting any kind of trans-affirming surgery, because it's just one more method of chipping away at people's rights, little by little.
For trans and non-binary individuals, the County Board of Supervisors claimed it was illegal violence. This is what just is amazing to me. Rick, I'm going to come to you first out of there. Claimed it was legal violence to oppose putting children on hormones and puberty blockers, and vigorously opposes measures to prevent child transitioning. Rick?
So, yeah, I hope I've thoroughly explained why this is all just a ploy to hurt people around them, right? I mean, that should be obvious to everybody now.
Talk to me. What do you think?
Well, it goes back to what John said in the first segment, that truth is actually love, that what they're doing is hate. But if you don't know truth, we know that the truth will set you free, but you got to know truth for the truth to set you free. And if we're not out there teaching the truth, which is what Kirk is doing by teaching humility instead of pride, if we're not doing that, then people don't hear the truth. We're hating them by not doing that. So true love is speaking the truth about these evil things.
Dude, this guy makes no sense every time I hear him talk.
And actually going out and being brave enough to share that with people in the community, and being strong enough to do it in a way where you know the history, you know the science, you're able to speak to this well. It's what Kirk's doing in these libraries all over the country. I can't help but think, Gene, about that judge in Judges 11, I never say his name right, Jephthah, well, however you say his name.
Jephthah.
Anyway, whenever the Ammonites said, oh, you stole our land, he knew the history, and he was able to turn around and give them all the history from the decades before. We have...
Okay, I don't remember that part of the Bible. I know Jephthah, but whatever. All right, go on.
To be like that. We have to be equipped to engage in this battle. Kirk's right. The left has been at it, scratching and clawing for decades. We've got to go into this equipped. I love what Brave Books is doing with Kirk, but John had it right in the first segment to exactly what you just showed. Truth is love. We got to stop being afraid to speak the truth to people. That's truly loving them.
Like I said, the whole idea, the premise, the plan for these people is pretty straightforward. I'm talking, when I say these people, I mean Flashpoint specifically. The plan is to claim the left is doing something and use that as a premise to do it yourself. I mean, I've probably showed this 100 times by now, but just watch this clip from Flashpoint. This is from Valentine's Day 2023. Listen to what Gene Bailey says here.
When we look back on Hitler went for the youth. The enemy always goes for the youth. We must take up arms and go for our youth.
You're seeing this, right? He claims the enemy, quote unquote, is doing this thing and uses that as a premise to do it himself.
Of the truth and of godly principles, but I want you to speak to that and what you're doing there.
Yeah, anyway, that's the relevant part. We need to do it. The enemy is doing it. We need to do it. He almost reaches self-awareness and realizes that he is the enemy. Almost. Anyways, that's the whole premise. That's the strategy that they run. That's their goal, is to claim someone else is doing something evil and use that as an excuse to do an evil thing themselves. Like, logically makes no sense even. Anyway.
You're right, absolutely right. Pastor Hank, I know you're a firm believer in children's books. Yeah. You produce a lot of material as well. You can't ease up. You can't let up for just one moment, can you?
You cannot. No, because listen, God is a father, and we owe it to the honor of our God, Father God, to protect children, to protect their innocence. And, I heard from one of my staff members, they wrote something that was very interesting. They said Pride Month really is telling God that he's wrong. Well, no.
No, Pride Month is just saying that you're proud of who you are and you don't need other people's approval. That's really what Pride Month is saying.
Oh, God is right. And Proverbs 31 says that we must speak up for the children, or we must speak up for the innocent who cannot speak for themselves. But
Oh my God, dude. It's always about the children. See, this is another part of the strategy. Claim that the children need protecting because the evil people are out to get them, to use them or whatever. So you must get to them first. You must use them first for your ends. Wanted to mention something. I don't remember who brought this up, but somebody somewhere, I was reading this somewhere, I think. Somebody pointed out that children are the perfect victims to lobby for the far right. They can't, talk back about it. They can't argue with the people trying to defend them, especially the unborn. This is actually about abortion originally. The unborn, are incapable of arguing with anybody. So it's just a silent person or a silent entity, silent being, a silent victim that these people can talk about and gain, moral footing on without having to worry about being criticized for it by that victim. The black community, not really the same. Black community can fight back and argue with people and say, what you're saying is actually going to hurt us, not help us, Anyway, kind of interesting perspective.
who cannot speak for themselves, but speak up for the children.
Sorry, let me step back, listen again.
Or we must speak up for the innocent who cannot speak for themselves. But Pastor Gene, if I may, I want to just show the people as well that I have, I've written series of comic books, Captain Zepto.
Oh God, here's his shout out, his what do you call it? Like his plug for his merchandise now. I've covered Zepto on my main channel, actually. Just go to my main channel and search Zepto. It's kind of interesting.
And it's really laughing, good laughter, good wholesome. This is my other one, Mutsvi and Milo. And the reason that God had me write these things is because children need to have something pure handed to them. And I thank God for people like Kirk that is really leading the charge out there, and others, that we're going to protect our children. And I want to lastly say this. The Lord did say when he was prophesying about how this sexual exploiting of children would come, and it would be at this level. He said if we would...
Okay, so he says that God said this was going to happen or whatever. That's simply not true. Hank Kunneman claimed that he received a message from God, I don't know, a couple of years ago about children being exploited, and then claimed that, that message is straight from God, like a new Bible verse. He believes that he's like a new prophet. Seriously, insane.
Keep pushing for our children and protecting their innocence. There would come a sexual revolution in reverse, and I believe we're going to see that in our country. And lastly, I want to just...
Wait, a sexual revolution in reverse? What does that mean exactly? Does that mean an asexual revolution where everybody is like non-sexual now? What a weird thing to say.
Say this last thing. Genesis 19, two angels came down to Sodom and Gomorrah, and the men of the city wanted to those angels. And you know what Lot did? He was ready to hand his children over to the pressure of their violence, their threats, and their perversion. And the angel had to grab him and pull him back in and say, what are you doing? and get him back in. And that's what we have to do. We have to pull.
I'm sorry. What? I don't feel like it happened exactly like this, but all right.
Back against this culture, and don't allow them to have our kids and our families. We're going to win this battle.
We are going to win this battle.
What a bizarre way to frame this whole thing.
And so I want to encourage all you grandparents, parents, maybe you don't have kids, go get Hank's stuff, go get Brave Books, all the stuff there. It's good for you to have a library there at your house for when the grandkids come to visit. They need to read some good books. Do it. Challenge you to do that and get involved. But I want to go, John Amanchukwu, you've been very quiet. You're so reserved tonight. I think
this is his first time being on the show, and he didn't want to step in and interrupt somebody or something when it wasn't his turn to talk. That's my guess. Salem Warren, thank you so much. More proof is Boebert's husband being a child herder, DeSantis making Florida have more control over its citizens, Marjorie Taylor Greene working with Nazis, and Ted Cruz downplaying Uvalde. F me, these people need to be tried for sedition. Yeah, 100%. You're absolutely right. Every time somebody brings up Boebert and her husband, I just want to point something out, okay? Apparently, the night that Lauren Boebert met her husband, I think they're divorcing now, the night that she met him, was at a bowling alley, and he whipped his junk out and showed it to the other 16-year-old girls that were there, I believe. Dude was, like, older, and he whipped his stuff out to show to the people around him. One of those people that he showed it to was Lauren Boebert. And the cops show up, and they charge him with a crime, and she was a witness against him in that whole situation, that whole whatever. So I always, like, every time this comes up, I always show this one picture. I always say this is an artist's recreation of the events where Lauren Boebert met her husband, the events that took place that night when they met. Okay. Anyways, all right, let's keep listening to Flashpoint.
Need to know, does this bother you at all, what they're doing to our children?
Oh, it like someone is going to say, no, it doesn't bother me. This doesn't happen, though, FYI. This is a completely made-up problem. This is not going on. People are not taking advantage of our children like this or whatever. They're desperately trying to make it out as though the left is taking advantage of children because they're an easy victim, right? They're somebody who can't fight back for against somebody advocating for them. They can claim anything, even though it's not happening, about children. And they're not, like, engaged in this. They have no idea what's going on, so they can't act as a distinct political group to argue against it. There is no group of children out there, activist children, that, run a company. They're not even allowed to run a company that's out there writing demands and stuff like that. That's why they say this stuff, because these victims can't fight back against their narrative.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. It should bother everyone. I travel the country speaking at school boards, addressing the issues of woke theory and gender theory and queer theory. Here's a book right here that's in many schools around the country. It's called The Ultimate LGBTQ Guide for Teens. Here's another one. It's called Jack of Hearts. And
yeah, I don't know what any of this is about. I don't know anything about these books, if they're real or fake or what. I wouldn't put it past them to, like, completely make stuff up about them. But guess what? Teenagers know that they're gay. You probably know you're gay by the age of 8. When you're in elementary school and you've got a bunch of girlfriends, or your friend has a bunch of girlfriends, and you're not interested in having girlfriends, you're looking at the boys around. You realize that you're gay at that point. It makes sense for kids to have access to this stuff. Should it be pushed on them? No, absolutely not. I wouldn't mind having it included in sex ed, but it should be made available to them at the very least. First of all, being gay or finding out that you're gay is not inherently sexual. When you see a husband and a wife kiss outside, like, they just kiss real quick and then they part ways, one's going to get ice cream for the kids or something, you're not thinking that's sexual. You're just thinking, oh, well, they kissed. I guess they're together. That's it. That's what you're thinking. But on that note, exposing kids to sexual things is scarring for them, damaging to them on a logarithmic scale. At 15, it starts being less scarring, and it goes down as they get older. 18, 19, 20, it's less scarring for them to be exposed to sexual stuff on a logarithmic scale. So kids should never, minors, anybody under 18 should never, ever be exposed to anything sexual, ever. But if they go in search of it, it's less damaging. If, a teen finds out they're gay and wants to read about other people that are gay, they should be allowed to. Again, being gay is not sexual, but just taking their arguments. Let's just take their arguments with it. Teens should be able to read about being gay, and it shouldn't be a problem, is my point. But these people want to make sure people are not allowed, these teenagers are not allowed access to this stuff. Why? Because they want to make it less normalized. They want to make it more difficult for people to come out as gay in the future. Emily Neptune, romantic attraction and sexual attraction are different. Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. 100% on that one.
And other parts. This book glorifies homosexual sex. And this book...
No, again, as Emily Neptune said, romantic attraction and sexual attraction are different. Is that what the book does? Does it talk about gay, like actual people sleeping together? Or does it just talk about being gay, period? They conflate the two things.
Parts. This book glorifies homosexual sex. And this book was in a school district in Asheville. It's called It's Perfectly Normal. This book is not soft porn, it's hardcore porn.
Okay, does he know what that word means, hardcore? I don't think he does. Also, look, if it was hardcore, I don't want that stuff, available to children. Obviously, nobody does. But I would be willing to bet it's not. I would bet anything. This dude is full of it. These people, like the people on Flashpoint, have a tendency to just blatantly lie about this stuff. DeSantis also lies about this stuff. You guys remember Doug Mastriano? Ran for governor in Pennsylvania, got pretty close to winning. I think he's running for senator now. Listen to what he says. It's a blatant lie. This was when he was running for governor, 2022, early October, right before the election.
On day one, the sexualization of our kids, pole dancing, and all this other crap that's going on will be forbidden in our schools.
Pole dancing. Forbidden in schools, he says. Really? He thinks pole dancing is happening in schools.
On day one, all the pornographic books that are in elementary schools will be pulled out.
There are no books like that in elementary schools. And I cannot believe that he doesn't know that. I refuse to believe that he's not fully aware of what he's doing. He graduated from a military academy. I forget exactly what it was that he graduated from, but it was something to do with propaganda, I think. He knows what he's doing.
On day one and done, critical race theory is out the window. Yep.
He must know. I can't believe that he doesn't know that this is all made up. So anyways, they're not above just straight up lying about this stuff.